The question is this: if this system was designed, doesn't that mean it can be redesigned? The moment we ask this question, the moment we begin to talk about building a fairer system, a single powerful threat is always used to shut down the conversation. It's the ultimate trump card, deployed by billionaires and politicians alike. The threat is simple. If you try to tax us more, we'll just leave. They paint a picture of private jets taking off, of wealth fleeing the country overnight, leaving the rest of us in economic ruin. It is, without a doubt, the most effective scare tactic in modern politics. And it is a myth. But let's be honest, there is a grain of truth behind the billionaire threat. In today's hyper-connected world, money can move with a tap on a screen. Global finance isn't bound by borders. If one country raises taxes, there's always another willing to offer a better deal. The ultra-wealthy have armies of accountants, lawyers, entire offices dedicated to finding the most favorable tax havens. We've seen it happen before. Headlines about billionaires relocating to Monaco, Singapore, the Cayman Islands. Countries competing in a race to the bottom, slashing taxes to attract wealth, while everyday people are left picking up the tab. No one wants to be the isolated nation losing investment and jobs. This is the real challenge. The system was built for a world where capital was physical, not digital, where fortunes were tied to factories, not to numbers on a screen. The fear of losing wealth to friendlier shores is not just propaganda. It's a risk that needs to be addressed. But here's the twist. Just because the threat is real doesn't mean it's unbeatable. In fact, it's only half the story. If the problem crosses borders, so must the solution. No single country can outsmart a global system designed to move money at the speed of light. For decades, nations have tried to go it alone, raising or lowering taxes, closing loopholes, or offering incentives, only to watch wealth slip through their fingers. It's like trying to catch water with a sieve. But now the world is waking up to a new reality. Cooperation isn't just an ideal, it's a necessity. International summits, once seen as little more than photo opportunities, are becoming battlegrounds for real change. The G20, the OECD, a growing network of countries are working together, sharing data, closing loopholes, and setting new standards. This isn't just about punishing the rich or closing borders. It's about designing a system where prosperity is shared, where the playing field is level, and where everyone, no matter how wealthy, contributes their fair share. Global problems need global solutions, and for the first time, those solutions are within reach. But what does a global solution actually look like in practice? Enter the global minimum tax, a concept that's transforming the conversation. For years, multinational corporations and the ultra-wealthy had an easy out, shifting profits to low-tax jurisdictions, leaving countries shortchanged. In 2021, a historic agreement changed the rules of the game. Over 130 countries representing more than 90% of the world economy agreed to set a floor for corporate taxes worldwide. This isn't just a policy tweak, it's a seismic shift. Nations are sending a clear message. The race to the bottom is over. No more hiding profits in tax havens. No more exploiting loopholes only the wealthiest can use. The world's largest companies, tech giants, financial titans, are being asked to pay their fair share wherever they operate. Animated maps show lines connecting countries. Graphics illustrate billions in new tax revenue. Global headlines announce the breakthrough. Suddenly, the impossible seems possible. International agreements, once symbolic, are starting to bite. The global minimum tax isn't a silver bullet, but it's a vital first step, a blueprint for cooperation toward a fairer future. As more countries sign on, pressure grows for others to follow. The rules of the game are changing, and with them, the future of global prosperity. If a global minimum tax can rein in corporate giants, what about the world's wealthiest individuals? The same logic applies. Imagine applying this principle not just to profits, but to personal fortunes. The yachts, the mansions, the art collections scattered across continents. For decades, the ultra-rich have used a maze of offshore accounts and shell companies to shield trillions from taxation. But what if nations agreed to a minimum tax on personal wealth, just as they did for corporations? Data graphics reveal the scale. A handful of billionaires controlling more wealth than half the world's population. Animated visuals show luxury assets dotting the globe, shifting in and out of financial secrecy. But as with corporations, international cooperation is changing the landscape. Countries are sharing information, closing loopholes, and tracking assets that once stayed hidden. It's no longer just about closing corporate loopholes. It's about fairness at every level. The tools are there. The question now is whether we have the will to use them. And if we do, the impact could be transformative, funding schools, hospitals, and infrastructure and restoring trust in the system. The principle is simple. Everyone should contribute their fair share, no matter how complex or global their finances. Whenever the idea of a global wealth tax surfaces, the same warning echoes through headlines. The rich will just pack up and leave. But where exactly would they go? Visual cues highlight billionaires flipping through luxury passports, private jets landing in exclusive enclaves, glossy brochures for tax havens. Yet, the reality is more complicated. The world's most desirable places to live, cities with great schools, stable governments, top-tier healthcare, vibrant culture are built on strong public systems and social trust. Wealthy individuals may have a choice of addresses. True security, opportunity, quality of life can't be found in isolated tax shelters or remote islands. Animated maps show the shrinking list of countries willing to welcome fortunes with no questions asked, as more nations close loopholes and cooperate on financial transparency. In the end, the threat of a billionaire exodus is more myth than reality. Most fortunes are deeply tied to markets, infrastructure, and communities that can't be easily uprooted. If every country applies the same basic standards, the race to the bottom ends, and the world's wealthiest will have fewer places to run. The real question isn't whether the ultra-rich can escape responsibility, it's whether we're willing to call their bluff and build societies that work for everyone. But what happens if we do nothing? The real cost isn't measured in lost tax revenue or billionaire relocation fees, it's paid by everyone else. Picture this. Public hospitals, overcrowded schools with shrinking budgets, aging infrastructure falling into disrepair. On city streets, more families struggle to find affordable housing, young people watch home ownership slip further out of reach. As the gap widens, trust in society itself begins to erode. Neighbors become strangers, resentments simmer, the sense of shared destiny that once held communities together starts to unravel. This is the quiet crisis that unfolds when the wealthiest avoid contributing their fair share. It's a world where opportunity dries up, public services are starved, and the social contract quietly breaks. The truth is, the price of inaction is already being paid, by ordinary people, every single day. But the story doesn't end with quiet resignation. Around the world, something is changing. In city squares, online forums, newsrooms, university halls, people are demanding a new deal. Protests fill the streets, citizens call for accountability and fairness. Headlines flash with stories of governments taking bold steps, closing loopholes, proposing new taxes, shining a light on hidden wealth. Economists, once divided, are now finding common ground. Their research points to a simple truth. When everyone pays their fair share, everyone benefits. Animated graphs show the ripple effects. New schools, repaired bridges, affordable homes, a future that feels possible again. This is the turning of the tide. The old myth that nothing can be done begins to crumble. In its place, a sense of hope emerges. Change is no longer a distant dream. It's a movement gaining strength, fueled by millions who refuse to accept business as usual. The tide is turning, and the world is watching. The cost of doing nothing is the reality we have explored for 17 videos. It's a society of crumbling public services, a housing crisis that locks out a generation, stagnant wages, and a profound loss of social cohesion. The risk of inaction is far, far greater than the risk of a few billionaires threatening to leave. The tide of public and even political opinion is beginning to turn. The idea of a global minimum tax is on the table. Economists are openly discussing wealth taxes. People are waking up to the reality that the system is not working for the 99%. The scare tactic is losing its power. The next step is to move beyond debunking the myths and start talking about the concrete, credible solutions that could build a fairer world. It's time to talk about what a 21st century tax system should really look like. Because if the UK, the US, the EU, Canada, Japan, and Australia all have a similar system, where exactly would the billionaires go? Would they really move their entire lives, families, and businesses to a politically unstable, non-aligned nation just to avoid paying a 2% annual tax on their extreme wealth? The reality is, the vast majority would not. They derive their wealth from the stability, legal systems, infrastructure, and educated workforces of these major economies. They need us more than we need them. The threat to leave is, for most, a bluff. We need to turn the question on its head. We should not be asking, what is the risk if we tax the rich more? We should be asking, what is the cost of doing nothing? The cost of doing nothing is the reality we have explored for 17 videos. It's a society of crumbling public services, a housing crisis that locks out a generation, stagnant wages, and a profound loss of social cohesion. The tide of public and even political opinion is beginning to turn. The idea of a global minimum tax is on the table. Economists are openly discussing wealth taxes. People are waking up to the reality that the system is not working for the 99%. The scare tactic is losing its power. The next step is to move beyond debunking the myths and start talking about the concrete, credible solutions that could build a fairer world. It's time to talk about what a 21st century tax system should really look like.